on this week's FPL Happy Hour.
I said to you last week on the live stream, I'll be shocked if he doesn't win Golden Boot, and I'll stand by that. Unless Harry Kane makes a miraculous move to Manchester, I don't think there's going to be many people that will be able to keep up with the goal-scoring record that Lukaku will get onto.
Not even Lord Daniel of Ings.
Well, we're careful. Danny Ings has still got cheese for hamstrings, so.
Hello and welcome to another episode of FPL Happy Hour with myself, Rob, otherwise known as FPL Panda, and I'm not joined by Sham yet again. I'm joined by our good friend James, or at JamesCC1234. How's it going, James?
I'm very well, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. It's a bit strange doing a pre-record. Like, you came and joined me on the live stream last week. And it's even stranger doing a pre-record without Sham here because I have to take the lead on things, and I'm not very good at that. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. We might just give up on it.
Yeah, we'll just go watch the West Ham game in 20 minutes if push comes to shove.
Yeah, yeah. So on that note, just for those that are listening or watching, this is being recorded on Monday evening, just ahead of the West Ham versus Leicester game. So. We're not really going to talk about West Ham or Leicester assets at all this evening because we don't know how they're going to do. But what we have got coming up for you is we're going to have a quick look at my one to watch. But because we've got James on, we're going to do. He's going to give us 3 ones to watch from his beloved Aston Villa. We're also going to. So that's our topic that we've picked is Aston Villa, and yeah, just having a look at them after a slightly better result at the weekend, James.
Yeah, definitely. I think having a full Villa Park helped out a lot. You can't really, I might be a little bit biased, but the atmosphere on Saturday was electric, and I've done a few away days in my time with Villa, and I still don't think you can beat the atmosphere, and 42,000 and a little bit roaring them on definitely helps. And when you've got Danny Ings hitting in bicycle kicks just before half time, I think someone was already saying online the other day that he could go down as a Holt End hero, and I thought it was at the wrong end to be a Holt End hero. And 2, he's only scored 2 and 2. I think we need to calm ourselves a little bit. But no, really good afternoon.
Yeah, it was an absolute worldie. There's been some great goals so far.
Yeah,
this season, like as I mentioned the other day, Luke Ayling against United was a great strike. Rafinha scored a decent goal as well at the weekend.
Yeah, Decore's last week.
Yeah, Decore as well. Yeah, it's been some cracking efforts that all could go on a short list for goal of the season already. Anyway, where were we? Yeah, so that's our topic is Aston Villa for the week, where we can talk a bit more positively now on them. And then our community topic, which is to ROM or not to ROM, after an impressive performance at the Emirates yesterday by Chelsea new boy, or is he an old boy or is he a new boy at Chelsea?
Newish
Romelu Lukaku, who bossed it on his debut, getting a goal and a man of the match appearance as well. So yeah, we'll have a little bit of chat about him. But first things first, I know it's not the end of the game week yet, James, but how have you got on this week so far?
A little better than last week, but that probably wasn't too difficult after a little bit of a stinker first week. Just to run through my team. Obviously, Emi Martinez in goal. Maybe fortunate to keep a clean sheet and not give away a penalty in the end.
And not get a yellow card.
And not get a yellow card. So that could have been all
he got the yellow
wiped off.
They gave him the yellow card still because it was dangerous, wasn't it? It was a dangerous play.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, a little bit lucky to get away with 5 points there, but thankfully, Callum Wilson's toenails were offside again. So VAR came in handy for once. Luke Shaw with 4 points, 2 points for turning up and 2 points for turning up. I don't know how he got away with 2 bonus points. It's just one of
FPL
those.
Towers captained him.
It's just unbelievable how he got 2 bonus points from that game. I think Southampton deserved to take the bonus points after battling so well. Obviously, Trent got me the assist and a clean sheet against Burnley, so that was a nice haul. Lewis Dunk returned me with a clean sheet as well, so that should have been 2 in 2 weeks for him if it hadn't been for James Tarkowski. John Stones got into my team and then failed to get into the Man City team. So he will be coming out for my first stub, which is Stuart Dallas. So another 2 points there for him. Mo Salah was my captain. Unfortunately, no return for Mo, but we were saved that there was no return for a certain someone else in red. So that was all right. Son with just the 3 against Wolves. From everything I've read online, it was Wolves that probably deserved to win that game. But I thought it was interesting that Dele Alli took the penalty for Spurs. I thought that was a shoe-in for Son to be taking. Still got Harvey Barnes. Go
just
on.
On Dele Alli, apparently he's taken, I think I've read something like 6 or 7 penalties for Spurs in his career at the club, and he scored every single one of them. While Son has missed penalties when he's come in to take them when Dele Alli hasn't been on the pitch. So
I presumed it was because Dele Alli won it that Dele said he wanted it, and because a certain someone wasn't on the pitch as well. But my third midfielder is Harvey Barnes, who's obviously playing tonight as we record. So I'm hoping a return from him would really be useful because I know a lot of people have got the West Ham kind of assets in maybe a defender like Kufal or Cresswell and an attacker. So being able to cover off against that would be quite nice. Ivan Toney, another 2 points, another blank, but I think you've got to keep the faith with a 6.5 million forward. I'm not expecting him to pull up trees every week. And then the 2 strikers that I hung my hat on to return, Calvert-Lewin, coulda, shoulda, woulda had a hat trick against Leeds if it wasn't for Meslier. Was sublime again, and I think Everton are really playing into his strengths with the crossing. And then finally, Lord Danny Ings, who, depending on what happens with Son and his injury this week, I've already earmarked as an outside bet that Danny Ings versus Brentford might be my captain for next week, just to roll the dice a little bit.
So Danny Ings, he doesn't get the freedom of the whole end, but you have lauded him.
Yes, yeah, you don't get the keys to the whole end until I want at least a full season of scoring like this. If he gets 20 goals this season and then takes the number 9 shirt off Wesley, then we'll talk about having the keys to the whole end. For now, he's just a Lord and Savior.
Right. So what was your game week rank?
My game week rank, I know I've moved up a dizzying 700,000 places compared to last week. So I'm up to 1.9 million. And my game week rank was, when I try and find it. Oh, I've moved up to just outside 1.1 million on my game week rank. So not terrible, but as I said, we're just inside the 2 million mark overall. So started well and carrying on well.
Yeah. Hopefully we can get that down to within the top million soon.
Yeah, maybe. Calm down. Maybe.
Right, how did I get on? So Robert Sanchez in goal, although Gaeta would have been the man to go for. He was sitting on my bench with 9 points. 6 points, only 6 points from Sanchez instead of my 9 from Gaeta.
It's a tough one.
TAA with 12 points, Shaw with 4, Samikas with 11. I went Bruno. I was delighted after Saturday night, and I might have been made to eat my words a little bit. Thinking, I'm quids in here with Salah blanking, but it didn't happen. Barnes, like you, still got to play. Yeah, Salah blank. Although unlucky with the offside, I think that was about sort of a foot, maybe half a foot offside. Buendia blank. I'm not sure he'll last much longer in my side at the moment. Danny Ings, yeah, that bicycle kick. I haven't made him a lord yet. He has to play for Man United to do that. I've got Antonio playing later and Ivan Toney with a blank. Yeah, at the moment 50 points, obviously with one to play, and a game rank of 2.6 million, which is pretty horrific, just over the average, and a red arrow down to 890k. Slightly different to what my podcast partner is doing at the moment, but more on him later on. Because he's not in the woods tonight. He's at the London Stadium, watching Leicester win. So yeah. So yeah, that's the game week then. We'll come back to that later on. Yeah, your first thoughts on next week. Let's go on to our ones to watch for the upcoming game week. So the player that I've liked a lot so far this season, and I'm shocked I'm actually saying it even as a Man United fan, but he's been brilliant for the first two games and seems to have grown in confidence. I think with the signings that United have made in the summer, I think Paul Pogba has finally kind of sprung into life a bit. I think, yeah, the addition of Sancho and Varane kind of showed what the club is really wanting to do. Like in past seasons, there's been some questionable signings along the way, with which at one point he might have been included in that. But yeah, he's performing to. It's almost game. I mean, what we saw from him on Sunday, it was like almost game-winning form. Yeah, I think he needs to get a little bit more involved in the last third, if anything. So he's got 20 points in 2 games so far, which no one would have put him in that bracket. It's only 7. He's had 2 price rises already, up from 7.5 to 7.7. And his ownership is currently, well, this afternoon it was 16.6, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's slightly more now, because he seems to just be consistently going up 0.1% every now and again. He's got 0 goals so far, but he has got 5 assists, which is a long way ahead of everyone else after he got his 4 assists against Leeds. He's taken 6 shots, only 1 on target though, which is something that we know Paul Pogba has to improve on. But a lot of those shots are outside the box. They're not sort of within sort of the penalty area and close to the goal. Yeah. But we don't mind that. If you're playing something like Sky, the fact he does take lots of shots could make him an option, and he's slightly cheaper. He'll pick up passing tiers, etc. Anyway, enough of Sky. So yeah, shots on target only 16.7%. But his shot creating actions, so far this season he's got 9, so 4.5 per game, and then goal creating actions 5, so 2.5 per game, or I've actually got them per 90, so because he hasn't completed both games, it's actually 4.9 per 90 and 2.7 per 90, which is an insane amount of like attacking creativity. It's probably one of the highest in the league by a long way.
Must be.
His non-penalty XG is 0.7, so we're getting to the point where we can maybe expect a goal from him. His expected assists, this is ridiculous, 0.9 expected assists for the season, and he has 5.
He's already on 5.
So yeah, he's outperforming his XA considerably. We'd probably need a goal from him in the next game or two to say that he's performing along with his non-penalty XG. But I like him as an asset coming up this week. United have got Wolves, who, according to my own FDR, are one of the weaker teams at the moment in the league. I've got them rated at 17. The fixtures rated at 17. They concede 5.5 shots on target per 90 so far this season, with an expected goals conceded per 90 of 1.5. I think that this United team are going to be a completely different prospect to Wolves than what Spurs were at the weekend. And this United team just look dangerous. I think the sooner they can get Varane into that back four, I think it will just improve the confidence, the ball coming out from the back. There'll be that supply from both centre halves that are very confident on the ball and bringing the ball out of the defence. And with that, it actually pushes players like Paul Pogba further up the pitch. He's not having to come in so deep to come and collect it for himself.
Yeah.
I'm shocked that I'm even suggesting it, because I would never have suggested Paul Pogba before.
No, definitely not.
Before last week, the Leeds game, you thought, maybe it's a one-off. Maybe it was just up for it being at Old Trafford. But then, even though the result was disappointing, we still saw this very positive attitude from him against Southampton. I just think at 7.7 million, you're looking at
cheap, innit?
Yeah, you're looking at one of the best creative players. Like, people will say, it's Paul Pogba, it's Paul Pogba. But he is one of the best creative players in the Premier League.
Yeah, definitely.
On his day, and we saw glimpses of it at the World Cup. If Mbappe could finish his dinner, Paul Pogba probably would have come away from the World Cup with 6 or 7 assists. Not the World Cup, the Euros, with 6 or 7 assists. But Mbappe just couldn't finish when he was getting it laid on a plate. With the return of Cavani as well, I think that just improves
and
Paul
Sancho
Pogba.
to come in.
Sancho to come in on the right, but I think it just improves him.
Definitely.
Because there's more players in front of him that are there to score the goals and provide him, because he does like that late run into the box that we've seen in past seasons. And I think where there hasn't been that quality from both sides of the pitch before, it's really going to help him. What are your thoughts on Paul Pogba then?
Well, I just wanted to ask you, as obviously you watch him as a Man United fan more than I do. What would you say you would expect now as a good season from him? Because for me, I still feel that for him to fulfill his potential, one, as a player, and two, as a fancy Premier League asset when we look towards goals and assists, I still think Man United are crying out for a holding mid to really give him that freedom to go on. I know against Southampton on Sunday, it was Matic instead of McTominay that came in. Do you think that was a ploy to obviously allow him more freedom? And two, do you think with you guys have been linked with Camavinga, someone that can just sit in and defend and do the dirty work. One, obviously, that gives Pogba more license to be forward, and obviously that makes him more of a fantasy asset for us managers going forward.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I mean, the talk on Camavinga is hotting up, especially today, when it's been quite apparent that Ren sort of said he's up for sale. He doesn't want a new contract. He goes for free at the end of the season, so we'll take 30 million. This is a player that a month ago they were looking for 50 million for.
Yep.
So he's had a 40% deduction on him.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Yeah, if he came in, or another holding midfielder. Like, I'm a big fan of Yves Bissouma from Brighton. Like, I'd be happy if United broke the bank to bring him in. But I think you'd be paying a lot more because Camavinga's a younger, unfinished product.
Oh, yeah.
Whilst Bissouma's had a couple of years in the Premier League and has got that experience there. So you probably have to pay a bit more of a premium for that Premier League experience.
See, I was shocked that you guys didn't go for Locatelli, because Locatelli's just moved from Sassuolo across to Juventus, and that was 35 million euros. So that's going to be less than 30 million pounds. And I thought that's the perfect screening mid for me in that Manchester United team. And I think you are that screening mid away from a title push with Sancho, Pogba, Bruno, Mason Greenwood, Cavani. That five rotating between 4 spots. I think that's a really serious team with Varane.
Throw in Rashford as well.
Rashford to come back, of course.
Yeah, and I mean, I really hope he comes back, having sort of had this, because he's been carrying this injury for a long time, and has had the operation put off several times, and to try and help the team. It would be good to see if him sort of having this operation, having the time out to let his body properly recover, he can come back and rediscover that form that we saw from him a couple of years ago, because he's as good, if not better, than some of those other 5 players on his day.
Do you think Marcus comes back and goes up front now with Sancho? Or do you think he'll go back out onto the wing?
I think he's stronger on the left.
Right.
I think that's his niche. Because he can cross and strike the ball with both feet. When he can cut in and hit the ball from the corner of the penalty area, he's deadly. I've never really liked him as a centre forward. I think Greenwood is
the one.
If I had the choice right now, it would be Mason Greenwood all day. Because I think he's what, 2021. But in sort of 5 years' time, he could be up there alongside the top strikers in the world, because I think he's that deadly. But
see,
be interesting.
That was just my question with Pogba. Is obviously when you have all these players come back, and obviously Sancho still obviously isn't fully fit, is Pogba's probably going to get pushed back into one of those mid slots in front of the defence, whereas at the moment he's playing either a centre attacking mid or off on the left. That was my big worry, especially when I think if he carries on this form and you look at that Man United fixture swing before Christmas, it's a really good fixture run for them. But by that time, Sancho should be up and firing. Rashford should be back. I don't see how Pogba gets into that front 4 and then going back to being a slightly more defensive midfielder. I don't know if that starts to limit his scope.
I think this is
the Pogba of old.
Yeah, this is where it's really important for United to get that high quality, energetic holding midfielder. that can cover that space. Like if you think Kante on his best days, like I'd fucking take Kante. Can't get in the Chelsea squad, he'd walk in the United squad.
John McGinn?
Take John McGinn. No, we've got our Scottish quota, thanks. But yeah, and I think that's where it's important that for Paul Pogba to be able to be involved further up the pitch is to have that holding midfielder there. And I think they signed Donny van der Beek hoping that he could do something similar. But he's not that kind of player. He's very much a box to box. Now Camavinga is a box to box, but has sat there and played that role, just shielding the defence as well. Whilst Van der Beek, I don't think had really had to do that with Ajax when he was there. I mean,
my other question is obviously his contract's up at the end of the year. What do you do? What did Man United do with that? Because that's why I think you need to be desperate to get the holding mid in. One, to fulfill his potential for this season, and two, I think if you've got someone in that can do that role and give Pogba the freedom, Pogba is surely more likely to say, "Fine, I'm happy to stay here."
Yeah.
And sign another contract.
Yeah, he's very much a player that we know that he's got an ego, and he likes to be a part of what's going on. I think the more potential the side shows in the early stage of this season, the more likely he is to sign a contract. I don't think it's about the money. I think it's about he wants to win trophies. Because since he's left Juve and came back to United, there's been a severe lack of trophies. There was the one season under Mourinho, and he was brilliant in that season.
The fake treble, the Europa League and the two cups.
I always for me it is a double. I don't include the Community Shield, but for Mourinho and probably for Paul Pogba, he counts that as free. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. I'm pretty confident if United are still there or thereabouts around Christmas, he will sign a contract.
It's got to be done before Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, for 2 or 3 years, but they'll probably have to throw in a release clause on him as well.
Where do you think he'll go if he goes? That's my next one.
Who would take him? PSG?
I don't think PSG. PSG or Real Madrid?
Real. Yeah, Real could come in.
The other one I saw, and I don't know what the official kind of murmurs are coming out of the club, because you probably have a better understanding around transfers as well, is I heard today that there might be talk of Donny van der Beek for Ndombele.
I have seen that rumour. I'm not sure how
easy that would be to do and
Yeah.
how realistic it is.
Yeah.
But would you take Ndombele?
He's an interesting one. He was brilliant in France.
He was.
And I thought he's going to come to the Premier League and dominate.
Yeah.
Can Solskjaer do what other managers haven't been able to do with him in the Premier League?
Yeah.
That's the big question. Is Solskjaer that man? We shall see, because he's going to have to turn him in. He's going to have to try and release that potential, because it's there. We've seen it in glimpses. Is he too similar to Van der Beek? As in, is that another pivot box to box midfielder? We've got there. So we're just swapping a like for like, when ideally I'd want a sort of a full-on defensive midfielder.
Definitely.
In there. So anyway, Paul Pogba. So he's my one to watch this week. I think he could be worth. I mean, if you fancied a punt, he could be worth punting on. He'll probably almost definitely be in my free hit team this week. That will be announced on the live stream. Right, on to our next topic, or our ones to watch, from James's beloved Aston Villa. I'm going to let you lead the way on this, James, and you're going to tell us all about one player we don't know, one player we don't really know, one we kind of know, and one we all know.
Right, I guess we'll start the order I'm looking at them here, and I think the obvious place to start is Danny Ings after Saturday. I think as Villa fans, when we signed him, I think it was the signing of the summer so far that no one knew about. It just turned up in an Aston Villa shirt, and everyone got very excited afterwards. Compared to a lot of what Villa's business has been doing, is getting excited before anybody turns up, and then not being too fussed when they actually do get here. I think he's the classic number 9 that we've been missing for a long, long time. And I know the number 9 is still technically Wesley, and that decision still mystifies me at the moment that Danny Ings wasn't given the 9 shirt. But as well as Ollie Watkins did last year, I just feel like Ollie Watkins isn't your go-to number 9 when you look in the Premier League. And I think Danny Ings does that job so much better, and that will allow Watkins to become a better player, because I still think Ollie's young enough to learn and obviously not change his role, because he's done the kind of wide play and the in behind a striker play at Brentford and Exeter. But I feel like when we get an Ollie Watkins fit and back and raring to go, them two up front, it'll be interesting to see how Smith does it. But I think Danny Ings can only really thrive off having that kind of partner with him. I think he's shown it with Che Adams at Southampton that being with another striker in a 2-striker partnership actually suits him. And I think the 2 goals so far for Villa, I mean, the one's a penalty, and the one this weekend is, if we're honest, it's a flick on, and it is a bicycle kick, and he makes it look spectacular, but it's a bouncing ball in the box. I haven't seen, a 20-yard run and a finish, something like that at the moment. I'm still waiting to see from him. But if he carries on at this rate, I think he's going to be a real asset, not just for Villa, but also for FPL managers at that 8 million mark. I mean, the competition is really Calvert-Lewin at the moment at that price. I'm trying to think who else is round there. Obviously, you're dropping down to the 7.5s for your Antonios and players like that. And then you've kind of got to go up to 9 for Firmino and 9.5 for Jesus. So I think Ings is in that kind of sweet spot at the moment, where obviously next week is Brentford as well. And I think that's, once again, another good opportunity to return some points. And then Villa's run definitely does get harder. But from what I've seen at the moment, I wouldn't say he's fixture proof, but I wouldn't be rushing to take him out going past game week 3. I think people may have bigger problems to deal with in their teams. That a transfer for Danny Ings may be a bit premature. So that was the reason I chose him as my first one to watch. As I said, the 2 goals so far. A chance of, I think, a third against Brentford is probably likely. And I think he's still in a Villa team that are still transitioning. So I can only see him becoming more and more of a threat. Obviously, once we get through this hard run of fixtures and start to get a bit more on an even keel, then it'll be interesting to see how he does. And that kind of leads into the second player, a player we haven't really seen so far this season. Obviously, saw him for half an hour against Watford last Saturday, and then wasn't even on the bench against Newcastle this week, which it was surprising because there was no rumours about injury. So I don't know what was going on for him not to be on the bench. But Leon Bailey as a 6.5 mid, I think with him and Buendia coming in at the start of the season, I think when we look back on FPL, a lot of people chose Buendia, and Buendia for me so far has looked. I think the only way I can describe him is a bit light in the Premier League so far. A lot of his play, I've seen him get knocked off the ball a lot, and I don't think we've played to his strengths very well. A lot of it is with his back to goal, and he's trying to shield it from a man and let it off. Whereas when I think of Buendia in his pomp in the Championship, it's getting in behind and running at people. And I think there's obviously more from him to come, but for me at the moment, it would be Buendia's place that would be up for threat, because I think El Ghazi or El Golzi, whichever way you want to describe it, has been, once again, he surprises me year on year. Every summer, I think, yeah, he's probably dropped down the pecking order a little bit here in terms of the wingers. And then he starts the season again on fire, and obviously looks like he's on penalty duties now for Villa.
Even with Danny Ings on the pitch, he took the ball, because I was listening to it on the radio, and I hear Villa get a penalty. It's like, get in there, Danny Ings going to get a brace. What do you mean, El Ghazi stepping up to take it?
It's 6 from 6 now. It's much the same. Where I think Dean Smith even said afterwards that when they're both on the pitch, it will be El Ghazi to take them, which I don't have a problem with until he misses. But every fan's going to say that, you know. But
so essentially, we just need Buendia and we need Bailey to start playing well. Buendia to start playing well.
Wow. And then El Ghazi comes out, and then, you know, then we still got Ashley Young to get pushed further forward again when Matt Target was on the bench again this weekend.
Ashley Young take the penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Ashley Young on free kicks. Obviously, he came in for Matt Target this weekend. I can only presume because he still hasn't slept after Ismail Assar bullied him. So I think Bailey's one that obviously I'd be in no rush to bring into my team because of the lack of minutes at the moment and probably just getting up to fitness. But when we look at after this kind of 4 games that Villa have that are quite difficult, and then back into a better fixture congestion where we play some of the weaker teams, I think at 6.5 million, he's an interesting asset where if you're looking to bring in some more premiums or looking to change around your premiums, obviously we're going to talk about a certain striker soon that might be in a lot of people's thoughts. I think trying to save a bit of money in midfield and bring him in could be a good option. And the one thing he has got that I think the Villa team lacks, and I think will be a real big asset for him, is just raw pace. He is unbelievably quick. And I think that's something we've missed for a long time. You look back to last season, a lot of the wingers were the same. A certain someone that won't be mentioned that's now on the blue side of Manchester, and, you know, Traore and El Ghazi and some of the other wingers we've had have all been kind of one-paced with the way they play, whereas Bailey is probably the quickest player I've seen in real life. Against Watford last weekend, he was absolutely electric. So I think just one to maybe keep an eye out on moving forward. And as I said, maybe a bit of a budget enabler in what we expect to still be a fairly well-performing Villa team. Fingers crossed. And then the last one I picked out was John Mcginn. And a lot of this was down to the fact that I think Villa are still undecided on the way they want to play. I think that's going to depend on, obviously, when Bailey and Watkins come back in. But at the moment, this kind of, it's classed as a 4-3-3, but it's more of a 4-2-3-1. We saw on the weekend with Mcginn actually the highest of the 3 midfielders. And at 6 million, I think it's one that it might just be one that sits in your team for the season, and he picks up the odd return here and there, and you go, yeah, that's fine at 6 million. That's more than you would want, you know. I think in playing that more advanced role, there's no reason he couldn't go and get 100 points as a Premier League asset, if not more, this year. And at 6 million, I'm trying to think of players in and around that bracket. I think the obvious one that stands out is Stuart Dallas, Jack Harrison, those kind of players. But playing in a more advanced role, we've already seen this season against Watford, he's got a screamer in him. and playing in that more advanced role with the likes of Buendia, Bailey, Watkins, Ings, all in front of him, he's bound to get assists this season. And as I said, for 6 million, can't see him being very highly owned at all throughout the season. He might just be one that sits in your team to enable the budget to be moved around and other players to be transferred out. And when he picks you up that goal every 3 or 4 weeks, or that assist and a bonus point, then maybe you just tick it off your list and go, yeah, that's a good week, and move on. So that was the reason I picked him out as the third one, really.
Well, I mean, we mentioned it on the live stream on Friday. Like, yeah, John McGinn, a couple of seasons ago, when Villa first came back into the Premier League, he was a brilliant FPL asset to have. He was picking up assists. He was getting a goal every now and again. And then he got in. Did he get injured for? He got injured for a long period of time. And missed.
And we really missed him.
The first part of last season.
I think he was. Did he come back? I'm trying to think. He was definitely there for Liverpool when we won 7-2, and that was only 3 or 4. So he might have missed 1 and 2. Maybe you might be right there.
Yeah. Or was it during Project Restart he was injured?
Yeah, I think he was definitely injured for our run in, where we were fighting for our lives.
Yeah, and I mean Jack Grealish had to kind of carry you out of relegation.
Definitely.
But yeah, and I mean at 6 million, like you say, it's a great bit of value, and Sham did say a couple of weeks ago about me benching Jack Harrison, that he wasn't happy about it, and benching midfielders at 6 million. How dare you? But I'd happily, like, if I owned him now and played him against Brentford, I'd happily have him sitting first bench against Chelsea and first bench against Everton, or even play against Everton. And play other players. I think he's a good enabler, and he's very unlikely he'll ever go over sort of 5%, unless he goes crazy.
And I think the thing for me, the reason I picked him out is it looks like Villa's business is done, and I think every Villa fan, me included, still thinks we need another midfielder, but it looks like Smith's going to trust young Jacob Ramsey, who started against Newcastle. And to be fair, we saw it last season in glimpses, and we've seen it in cup games as well. He will be a real player for us in the coming seasons. And if he's going to trust Jacob Ramsey, Douglas Luiz, Marvellous Nakamba, them three to rotate next to McGinn, and I think Luiz and Nakamba are definitely more of your sitters that we talked about that United might need to allow McGinn to go further forward.
Yeah, we don't want either. We don't want one or both of them.
You don't want Marvellous?
No, even the name isn't apt for him, is it? Let's just say that.
Let's leave poor Mar. I like Marvellous.
I think it was Match of the Day last week. The commentator, she said, there was like I think it was a misplaced pass by him or something. And she went, and he's Marvellous. The camera has just put it out of play. That wasn't so marvellous.
I just think Marvellous the camera is. He came from obviously the Belgium leagues. It took him a long time to get used to the game, and I think he's a bit of an old school midfielder. He isn't of the quality of some of them, but he is just the kind of midfielder that
win the ball and give it to someone that's better than him.
Yeah,
and try not to pass the ball out of play.
Exactly. Whereas Douglas Luiz can do a bit of everything, and Douglas Luiz is obviously, I would presume, now the first choice next to McGinn. Until, we've still got Morgan Sanson to come back, who's become the forgotten man down at Villa Park, and I am excited to see him come back. But as I said, McGinn's starting 11 spot will never be in doubt, especially now as vice captain. And I think, barring that injury we've seen, he is a 90-minute man every week, all season. And as I said, if he picks you up 3 or 4 goals and 5 assists through the season, close to 10 attacking returns, with some bonus points and some extra points for clean sheet in there every other week, then why not at 6 million? As you said, I don't think he's ever going to get to an ownership level that's going to worry you. So I think it could just be the last two, Bailey and Mcginn, are more ones to look at further on. I think Danny Ings is, if you didn't already have him, I don't know what more you could have asked for in game week 1 or 2 to want to get him in.
He's knocking on the door of 40% ownership, so he's right up there now. And I can see him. If he does return again against Brentford, then he'll be probably one of the highest owned forwards, if not the highest owned forward.
He's already the highest owned forward by 10%.
Yeah,
Antonio's next at 29, and he's at 39. I didn't realise he was that high.
He's one of the highest owned assets in the whole game now. Amazing what a bicycle kit can do for you.
That's right. You need a double price rise.
Yeah. Right. That's Aston Villa. Now let's talk about the man that is on everyone's lips at the moment for FPL reasons and for just footballing reasons, and that is Romelu Lukaku. So we put this out as a poll. I kind of knew it was going to be the winner the moment I put it out, and a lot of people are talking about, is it too soon to plough all of this money into Romelu Lukaku, knowing that you're going to have to probably come off either Salah, Bruno, or Son. You're going to have to come off another premium player to get there.
Yeah, definitely.
Most likely. And lose someone like Danny Ings maybe to make way for him, because you're going to need one of those strikers that are slightly more expensive, maybe Ings, Calvert-Lewin, someone like that. So I thought the best way to go about it, we'll have a look at how he performed in the Premier League for Man United, where his stats are actually better than I thought. We'll have a look at how he performed at Inter, and you can give us a bit of background info on his time at Inter, and then how we think he performs for Chelsea, especially in these next 4 game weeks, where Chelsea play Liverpool, then Liverpool away, then Villa at home, Spurs away, and then City at home. So it's not the most ideal time to go ploughing into a premium, but is Romelu Lukaku an exception to that fact? So, Romelu Lukaku. For those that are listening, his stats at United weren't as bad as were made out to feel. In his 55, we'll say 55 starts rather than 66 matches played, he got 28 goals and 7 assists. So about half a goal every half a game. No, a goal every 2 games. And then we won't even go into assists because he just didn't assist much. He took 141 shots in that time, so in those two seasons, with 76 of them on target, so 53.9% shot accuracy, which I was really impressed with. And then shot creating actions only 124 in that time. Goal creating actions only 22. Then non-penalty XG of 25.8 in those 2 seasons. Expected assists of 7.5, so actually performed to his expected amount for assists. as a United fan, I'm feeling a little bit harsh on him. His stats don't actually read too bad, and read like a player that you'd expect to be a double-figure FPL asset.
Yeah,
Would you agree?
I wasn't surprised. I wasn't surprised at the. I think the first thing I wanted to say was I wasn't at all surprised at his price. I think a lot of people raised the eyebrow that he was only $500,000 cheaper than Kane, you know, and a million cheaper than Salah and $500,000 cheaper than Bruno. But the moment I knew that he was coming back to Chelsea, one, I thought it was the right one to come back to if it was going to be any of the teams to go to. And two, I just think at that price, obviously, we're talking that a lot of people have probably been able to get 3 premiums into their team. I think if we look at maybe Son, Salah, and Bruno is probably the 3 combined that everyone's most got into. That I think he had to be that highly expensive. Otherwise, if he'd come in at 10 and a half near Son, then it would have been a too easy move for a striker that realistically, even if you ignored his Inter Milan record and just looked at his Premier League record, you said you were shocked at how good it is. And how many strikers are there ahead of him? Maybe Harry Kane. That's about it of the current breed. So I wasn't shocked at his price. And then when you actually, take a closer look at the Inter Milan stats, he's had 2 seasons there and has been unbelievable, really, for me. I mean, I watch a lot of the Serie A, and at times he's looked better than a certain someone that used to also play in a Manchester United shirt and wears the number 7 quite a lot. And I think it was almost make and break that Inter Milan move. I think if it hadn't worked out at Inter Milan, you never would have seen him back in the Premier League.
He'd have been off in China or something like that.
Yeah, it would have been the end of him playing at the highest level. But the fact that he went to Inter obviously helped Inter win their first title in 10, 15 years, I want to say, the last time Inter.
Oh, Mourinho, wasn't it?
Yeah, so that's
2010? 2011? 2010.
Yeah.
It was,
so 11 years ago.
Yeah, because they won the treble that year, 2010.
Yes,
because it was, they won the European Cup in the middle of 2 Barcelona ones where United were the runners-up. I always remember, that Inter-team 2010. I mean, I'll quickly, as we've moved on to Inter, I'll just quickly run through the figures, and then you can tell us a bit about his time at Inter. So 65 starts at Inter, so 72 matches played altogether, 47 goals, 13 assists. He took 184 shots, 83 of them on target, 45.1%. So a bit of a drop from United, but he's taking more shots, so you don't really mind. Shot creating actions, 216. So it's almost 100 more. Goal creating actions, 36. So 0.7 goals a game, 0.2 assists a game, a shot every game, a shot and a half on target every game, 3 shot creating actions a game, a non-penalty XG of 33.7, so outperforming his XG massively. Expected assists 13.1, so on the money with his assists. You're gonna back this up, but the thing that I spot straight away, and I know that Gary Neville was very positive on, is his play in the build-up. He drops a little bit deeper. His first touch is a world away from what it was 4 years ago, when I said some things about him and his first touch. But he seems to be more of a complete centre forward rather than a striker.
Definitely. And I think that a lot of that came from at Inter Milan was actually playing with a second striker. I know at his time with United, I'm trying to think who he would have played in a
He never have
two
played
with.
as they
Really, would he? Was
since
Ibra there at the same time? I'm trying to think of the time frame.
in Rom's first season, Ibra would have been there, but they were very rarely on the pitch together.
Yeah.
It would either be one or the other starting,
Yeah.
and it was normally Ibra that started more
Yeah,
often than not,
and
because he just never really fired. There was occasions when they started together, but Rom would be pushed out right to play
yeah,
as like a right-sided forward. But yeah, I mean, he was never that main man, and I think in other teams, generally he'd play as a striker by himself up top. I mean, at Everton, it was very much the same for him. At West Brom as well, and at Chelsea the first time round. He was very much up top by himself.
and I think that's the only discernible difference I can make. I know he's going to come back into a Chelsea team now that looks like it's going to be more often than not him up front, but it won't surprise me if that 3-4-2-1 that they played against Arsenal becomes a 3-4-1-2 and say Mount comes out for Werner or Havertz comes out for Werner and he gets to play alongside.
I mean, in that last 10 minutes yesterday, when it was about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, when Werner came on, they were playing up top together.
Yeah, and I think that's been a lot of his. Yeah, when did Werner come on? Last 5 minutes or so. I think that was the one thing I took away from his time at Inter Milan is that partnership he built with Lautaro that I spoke about last week on the live show. I think is really developed him, as you said, into a more well-rounded striker, being able to have someone both to play off and run off himself, and then to also bring into the game through Lukaku's actions. I think, as you said, one is improved that first touch. I think we saw for the goal where he shields it from Pablo Mari and then plays it back, and then it goes out to Reece James. It reminded me of the goals he scored at Inter Milan, where he would drop short to allow Martinez to go in behind, and then Lukaku would then be on the end of a Martinez ball once that came across the box, or if Martinez got in behind and shot and it was parried, Lukaku would then always be breaking his neck to get in front of his defender to get a goal. I think that's something that you're going to see carry on. We didn't see Ben White and a centre-back partnership of Pablo Mari and Rob Holding. I don't know how much you read into that, but he was always going to just run over them, through them, round them, hold them off. And I think that's something we saw at Everton, United, Chelsea the times before, but it was quite raw, his ability to do that. I don't think it was very well refined in the way he held off players or his kind of gamesmanship that if a defender comes tight, sometimes I'm going to pin and roll you, and sometimes if you come to try and press me, I'm just going to move further away so I know I've got my space then to turn and run at you. And I think that's something that maybe going away and experiencing Italian football that for, everything we say about it, I still think is a very high standard of league. And obviously playing in the Champions League and things like this, he's still experienced playing against these other teams, playing in a different kind of culture of football. I don't think will have done him any harm, that to actually go away and learn some skills that he maybe thought he didn't have playing in England and being able to transfer them back now he's in England, I think will only help him in his game. And I think for me, he looked a yard or two quicker than he ever did at United. For Chelsea, he looks like he's leaned down a little bit. And he's still got that eye for goal. How Leno saved that second one onto the crossbar.
I couldn't believe it.
Lukaku couldn't believe that he saved it either.
Afterwards, because he's headed it, and he thought it came off the bar.
Yeah.
he thought he hit the bar, and then he was like, he asked someone, went, "What? He saved it?" And then
Yeah.
he's like, you see him standing there watching the replay, on the big screen of the Emirates, and he just goes, "Oh my god! Like, how have I not scored?"
And I think that's one thing that I also took is I think he would have been happy at United if he'd scored a goal. I think he would have been happy that that was his work done. Whereas at Inter and at Chelsea, from what we've seen, the limited amount of him at Chelsea, but I know it'll be right because I've seen it at Inter. He won't be happy that he only scored one against Arsenal. He would have been desperate for that second and the third. I think him at Stamford Bridge, I think you saw him thrive off that Chelsea away end in the second half when they were singing his name and he was applauding them during the game. And I can only imagine a full Stamford Bridge singing his name if he goes and scores. I think he's going to get such a boost from that I said to you last week on the live stream, I'll be shocked if he doesn't win Golden Boot, and I'll stand by that. Unless Harry Kane makes a miraculous move to Manchester, I don't think there's going to be many people that will be able to keep up with the goal scoring record that Lukaku will get onto.
Not even Lord Daniel of Ings.
Well, we're careful. Danny Ings has still got cheese for hamstrings. So I was saying to someone that during the week, I hope he gets called up for the England squad in a couple of weeks. And then I thought about it and went, no, he's a Villa player. I hope he doesn't, because I hope he gets 2 weeks off. Yeah,
I think it's interesting what you said about how his game's changed and his awareness of defenders. Do you think the fact that he was playing in Italy and in that Inter side up against sort of top centre halves in training week in, week out, and then in games week in, week out competing against like that great Juve pairing, etc. Do you think that's ultimately made him into this player that he is today? Because the guy seems like a machine, and we saw glimpses of it in the Euros. Like, everything, like, he's got his back to a defender, and the defender's right up against him. The ball gets drilled into him. In past seasons, it would just like ping off his foot and end up
trampoline foot.
Yeah, somewhere. But now he kind of cushions it in. He can then decide whether he's going to look to play the ball back into the number 10 or play it out wide, or, which we saw a couple of times yesterday, he just pinged it, went one way and then rolled back the other way, taking the defender out of the game, and he can get his shot away. I mean, we saw glimpses of stuff like that at United, but it would almost always definitely go wrong.
Yeah, I think that is a valid point going away to Italy, and you know my opinion on Chiellini and Bonucci. I still think that's the best centre back partnership in the world. I don't think you could drop that two into any team in the world, and I think it would be an improvement on what people have got. I think the thing for me was, and you may be able to correct me on this, I think looking back at that Man United team when he played there, I'm trying to think of what quality he had around him. Whereas when I look at that Inter Milan team, I think a lot of, and obviously now the Chelsea team he's in, I think obviously he's the focal point and teams are going to be worried about him. But I think teams, especially in Italy, were so scared of Martinez, Eriksen when he played in behind, the way Inter Milan pushed on their fullbacks, be that Hakimi, became such a threat on a wing that defenses would get sucked across trying to protect against a cross. One, in their mind that they knew Hakimi was a good attacking fullback, and two, they're thinking if a cross comes in between Lautaro and Lukaku, we haven't got much chance of defending this. So I think the fact that he's playing with such better quality, you look at Mount, Havertz, Werner, Ziyech, the way Reece James pushed on for his assist and obviously his goal for Chelsea. I think Reece James was exceptional for Chelsea. Other players they've got. When Ben Chilwell comes back on that other side, we know Ben Chilwell likes to get forward. I think teams are just going to be so worried about every other player around him that he's not going to be able to ghost his way into those positions, that it almost becomes inevitable that he's going to get those opportunities because they're going to be like everyone else, that it's going to take one cross and Lukaku is going to be stood there like he was for the Arsenal goal, and in a blink of an eye it's happened, and he might not have even touched the ball in the build-up. And when I think back to that Man United team that he played in, I mean, who would have played in and around him at that time? We talked about Ibra on the occasion, but I guess it would have been Rashford and.
I think Lukaku's greatest moment in a United shirt was against PSG in Paris when he picked up a brace on that that glorious night. But the team around him was fucking awful. I think you had him, Rashford, Martial was injured, Pogba was injured. I think Mata started the other side, and I'd like to say it was Fred and McTominay in the middle, and I can't even tell you who else was in midfield. And then it was like Lindelof and Smalling, and yeah, it just wasn't very pretty at all, and that was very much how the team lined up at times, especially after Mourinho left, and you had Lingard in there as well. And so if you're thinking the quality at the time for Romelu Lukaku was Lingard, Rashford, and Mata, because Fred still isn't brilliant. McTominay has got the potential to be a very good midfielder, but that was a very new partnership itself back then. I think if Lukaku walked into this United side, it'd be chalk and cheese.
Yeah.
It'd be.
I was just trying to find that Man United lineup from that night just to have a look. It was Rashford, Ashley Young, and Mateus Pereira were the two that supported them, with Mason Greenwood and Tahith Chong that came on. So this is what I'm getting at. I know he was up front with Rashford, but if you now say that he's going to be up front with Werner Havertz, Mount, Ziyech,
you're getting a different player.
With Alonso and Chilwell pushing on compared to that night Eric Bailly started at right back for you. You know what I mean? I think that's what I've seen from in that Inter team when he joined were, fourth, third, kind of the standard Inter. And then the improvements they made in and around that team, players like Barella driving in from midfield. Eriksen had probably his best season in an Inter shirt last season when they won the league. As I said, Hakimi, I wasn't shocked when he got moved on to PSG. He's a top player for me. I think just having that quality around him, one's obviously going to raise his game, but two is just that teams are going to be so worried about everyone around him that, as I said, he probably only need to touch the ball once in the build-up, and that'll be tapping it into the net.
Right. So after all of that, we still haven't answered the question: to Rom or not to Rom? I think we could both agree that this week against Liverpool, we're going to see a real test for him. Van Dijk's looking like he's pretty much back to his best. He was brilliant the other day. Him versus Van Dijk versus Lukaku is going to be some matchup. I'm of the opinion I want to watch that matchup and learn a lot about Romelu Lukaku and how he fits in to this Chelsea side against a stronger defence. I mean, I think we'll very likely see this Liverpool defence almost at full strength for the first time since they won the league almost. Well, since they played Villa.
Do we think Robbo's back for this week? Is that what
I think all signs point to Robertson being back. I think it'll be Van Dijk, Matip, and TAA.
See, I was just thinking where you've said that you're obviously not going to go with Rom this week. With my, obviously, we'll come on to maybe what we're going to do with our teams. I've got 2 free transfers, a bit like you. The only thing that's niggling in the back of my head, and I think it's quite a affordable move, if I think about it, is we saw Son come off injured for Tottenham. And if that looks like he's going to be out, I mean, Son's at 10 million and Lukaku's 11.5. So with 2 free transfers to move the 1.5, around, I'd have to take out a striker, but that may be moving someone like Tony down just to a bench filling striker would allow me to do that. I'm just worried that if he scores again, we start to see a price rise and he almost becomes out of reach without really having to hamper your squad. If he starts to get towards 12, then it starts to be a question between him, Bruno, and Salah. Whereas at 11.5, I think he's still at a point now where his price isn't going to go down. If he doesn't do well in the next 4 weeks, he might lose 0.1 of a million, but he isn't going to drop to 11 million. And we've already said that Chelsea fixture swing afterwards, you're going to want to be there and have him for that already. So it's a case do you try and get ahead of everyone else and maybe have 4 weeks. Realistically, he could score in all 4 fixtures. I mean, I don't hold much hope when he plays Aston Villa that Tyrone Mings and Ezri Konsa will be able to deal with him, and Eric Dyer's not going to be able to deal with him against Tottenham. So I think those 2 in between the Man City game, if he goes off again and we see a price rise, does he almost become like you've jumped on that bandwagon too late that then you're almost forced into a wild card then to get him in? And by that time, have you missed out on, another 3 goals? It could be another 20 points before you get him in. And that's the one with me, with everyone seemingly, except for Son, coming through this week fine, not injured. And I think if Son looks like he's going to be out, then it could be probably a little bit of an easier move than people thought it was going to be to move your premiums around.
I mean, you could always, like, if you didn't fancy Lukaku against Liverpool, you've got your 2 free transfers, Son's injured, you could always just make the Son move this week, roll the transfer, and then and then bring in, you said about maybe having to downgrade another one of your strikers like your Ivan Toney. Then you've got 2 free transfers next week to do that. I think that if you're taking that -4, especially when because you'd be taking the -4 to move Ivan Toney down, you'd need a return from Lukaku to make it even worth it.
Yeah, I just thought the other one for me personally is, as you said, just do the one this week and maybe drop Son. If I move Son to Rafinha, that's 3.5 million saved. And then next week, when Villa's fixtures swing, I could move Danny Ings 8 Lukaku. Plus 3.5 takes me to Lukaku within my 3 transfers.
Yeah.
And then I've still got 2 to move around next week, because I think we've kind of seen today this whole thing with the international break and players going away. I know Salah has not been released by Liverpool, but I think that might catch some people out, that having 2 free transfers still over that international break, you might be able to fight some fires that pop up there.
Yeah, I mean, on that note, I'm of the thought that I want to hold 2 free transfers for as long as possible. So trying to just make 1 transfer and then roll, make 1 transfer, roll, and just try and keep it rolling so that when we do get the other side of this City game for Chelsea in game week 7, So once they got rid of City in game week 6 and they go on their fixture run, I can almost do a mini wild card, a -4 to then bring in my 3 Chelsea players, or I might have brought in someone like a Havertz or a Reece James the week before to play against City. But at the moment, so would you say sitting and watching and waiting then? I mean, especially if you've got 2 free transfers.
I think that would be the sensible thing to do, but often I don't do the sensible thing. And would it surprise me? It wouldn't surprise me if we come on the live stream on Friday and I've done Son down to, I don't know, I've done Son down to a 5 million
Brownhill
or a 4
Gilmore,
or I've done him down to a Gilmore, bought Stuart Dallas in off my bench to start against Burnley, and then moved Ivan Toney up to Lukaku to play against Man City. Would it surprise me? Probably not. And I'm a big advocate of him. You know, I was a big fan of him from watching him, and I think it'll only make me a bigger fan of him having him in my team. And I think while he's still got this difficult run, he still becomes a bit of a differential. I think once we get past 7, 8, as you said, he's going to be in so many teams that it's going to be more a necessity of having him because of ownership rather than point scoring ability.
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I think we're going to see a lot of people. There'll be sort of a very sort of divided opinion on it, especially if we're talking about value and price rises and stuff, which could come into play. And I think either way, I think there's a gamble there that you're going to be taking. Either A, you're bringing in a player to then blank this weekend, or B, you end up getting priced out and you have to make an extra move just to bring him in. I'm personally, not a fan of the Liverpool game. Villa and Spurs would probably worry me if his ownership's high enough. I've already told myself that if that ownership does hit sort of 35 to 40% by the time we get to the game week 4 deadline, I'll be forced to do it. I'll have to bring him in. And I'll be bringing him in 4 weeks earlier than I wanted to, but I think when the ownership gets to that point, for someone that we know whose ceiling can be too high, I might have to do it. But ideally, I'll be looking at game week 7 or even game week 6, depending on how City look between now and then against the better sides. I mean, we'll see them play Arsenal this week. We'll see them play Leicester next week.
You said better sides and then Arsenal, so that was big of you.
We'll see them play Leicester. We'll see them play Leicester, and this is when I check the Leicester score and see that they're getting
West
smashed.
Ham are winning. West Ham are winning, and 1-0. And Iosi Perez has been sent off for Leicester at half time.
There you go.
And Side Ben Rama's got another assist.
Yeah.
So good.
So Sham will be happy. So that's Lukaku then. So we haven't really decided anything, but we've given you maybe between myself and James, James, I've given you a bit more information about him and what he's bringing back to the Premier League from Serie A. But so at the moment, you think you might bring him in, but you might not.
If Son is injured,
Then
that will be. If that's where I decide, if I decide I'm going to use both my transfers, then there will be. I don't think there'll be another premium I bring in. I think the million saving from Bruno is just enough that I can put that million into someone else that can sit on my bench, and I'm not too worried about if they come on. I think if I was to move to Bruno, a £2.5 million increase from Son, then that severely weakens me, probably down to one playable sub. And it sounds like I might have problems with John Stones in my team as it is. So I might be looking to have 2 playable subs in case Stones doesn't play again. So yeah, I think come Friday, if Son's not there and I've decided to use both transfers, then I can't really see myself going with anyone except for Lukaku as my new premium.
Cool. Right. I think we've covered everything, and we've probably covered your plan,
Team.
your
Yeah.
plan for the week as well. So we
Definitely.
might, we might leave that there, and we'll come back to it on Thursday evening for last orders, the live stream, and see what's happened and where we are. Although we might not be anywhere because we might still not have any news on Son. So
Exactly.
yeah, we'll have to see. Right, so just a little bit of housekeeping for everyone. Our mini league table is up on the screen for those watching on YouTube. For those that are listening, our leader as we near the end of game week 2 is Jordan Liddle. He's on 175 points. Second place got Alexander Bowden. Joint second, this Struick. We'll go with that. And then in fourth place, you got Emil Yekkerson, and there's nobody that we know after that.
So who's in fifth? Who's in fifth? Are we not going to say
fifth,
who's
that's
in
Richard
fifth?
James Neal and Ryan Campbell, and our Belgian rep from our Euros pods, Guillaume Royer. And yes,
I've tried my
Shamil
best, Sham.
Jelani or Sham is up there as well. He wants that shirt to buy himself, obviously. So yeah, well done to all the guys that are paving the way in the FPL Happy Hour mini league. For those that aren't part of it yet, the code is at the bottom in the description for the podcast / YouTube video, but it is 1PQSLT, and entries close at the game week 5 deadline. The first prize for that will be a shirt of your choice for the 22-23 season. Yeah, this season's 21-22 to be for the 22-23 season.
And you can still catch me in the mini league because I'm so far down it.
So you can still catch James. So yeah, get yourselves entered. We have said that we'll throw in some other prizes if we get over 500 entrants by game week 5. So we shall see. That's it. And then last up, we've got our third live stream of the season. Our last order show on Thursday evening this week. Last week we did it on Friday, but it wasn't that busy, so I think everyone's out like enjoying themselves and not thinking about fantasy football. So we'll do it on Thursday evening, so a couple of days before deadline this week. But that will be at about probably 9:30, 10 o'clock. James, you'll be joining me again this week because
I certainly will.
Where's Sham this Thursday? I think he's off to the woods again this Thursday.
Was it? I think he was off to the woods again, or the woods were getting lost in him, as you said.
Yeah. So yeah, he's spending a lot of time in the woods at the moment.
Sounds almost as bad as Panda's picks. Sham's in the woods.
Shams in the woods. Hashtag Shams in the woods. So yeah, because he's in the woods, he's not here, but he will be back, I believe, next week with me to do the next
time next week.
Yeah. So yeah, that's it. Have a good week, everyone. And if you're not joining us on the live stream, then you'll miss out. But have a great game week. Cheers. See you later.
Cheers, guys. Have a good one.